ahead.
How are you guys feeling, right? Have you already started to work on the challenge? I know this is a bit more challenging data set, and we're going to talk about it. But this is one of the things that I think you kind of have to be ready for from time to time. And we've talked about this with Federico together multiple times. We would love to have a situation where the data set is perfect, where there's just one fact table, multiple dimensions, you can just plug it in, everything gets connected. Mwah, chef's kiss, right? In reality, it's usually not that perfect.
Correct.
So this one, if you look at the data set a bit more, you're gonna have the same feeling as what we did when we first looked at it as well. Is it feels like it's a typical data set that you would get from a client, which is not the raw data, but actually it's already a pivot of the data. So it doesn't go into the full row level context. You're basically getting already snapshots of different dimensions, and they're calling them dimensions, but they're really not dimensions. So it's one of the challenges of the challenge, I would say. Figuring out what you want to do with it, right? Because there are certain things that you can connect, which are going to be fine. But if you want to connect everything, it's pretty much impossible, because there are certain things which don't have the full context, so you can't compare it. Like, for example, we're going to go through the data set further on, but like, for example, if we look at the promotions, right? There's the total budget and uplift, for example, how much we wanted to increase with the particular campaign. We only know the time frame when it's starting and ending, but we don't know whether it was used in a certain sale, whether or not it was in a way used for a particular customer or anything. So some of the numbers are very hard to determine. Okay, what's the context down to the very last row, right? So yeah.
And I think that is a very important point, guys. Data doesn't come perfect as you think. Um, you're not going to get the fantastic one fact table and four dimension and everything is perfect. To the contrary, okay? If you are picking up data from a database, normally databases are relational and not dimensional. There is a difference. And sometimes it's difficult actually to actually create a snowflake or a star schema. And people are using two different or three different Excel files, for example, they might have nothing in common. Okay, and you need to work it out how to work with them about it. I think it's a very good experience to see this kind of data set because you have to, on the one side, say, okay, I can actually model this part, but I can do nothing about this part.
Yeah.
And in the case in our challenge, okay, I'm gonna work with this view, okay, and I'm gonna only work in product or orders or something that I know it makes sense for me in my head and in the model. You don't need to actually use all the 10 tables that we have. You can only use three or four, and that would be okay.
Yeah.
It's up to you to decide to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because remember, we're constantly saying this, and you don't have to be afraid to use this, right? What we give you is the base model. You can enhance it, you can remove the unnecessary data. If you know that you're only going to be working with two or three of them, there's no reason for you to keep the other five tables, for example, right? Just delete them, forget about them, that they even exist, and focus on what's in front of you. If you need some additional information, you can enhance that with some bits and pieces, like, for example, I don't know, some pseudo campaigns or something like that, right? But it's one of the tricky parts about being a developer. You're always not going to get clean data sets, so you kind of have to figure it out. By trial and error, sometimes you can figure out, okay, we can actually put these two things together and it's going to be working just fine. But this third one, if you want to look into this, for that, I need a completely separate page, because it just makes no sense to put everything together, right? And it's one of the pitfalls, I think, of Power BI as well in the beginning. Is, I think, Federico, you can agree with this, right? When we started off as well, you wanted to kind of put as much information as possible in a single page, because, well, I can do that. I can make a measure for this, I can make a chart for this. Then you kind of figure out, okay, there's field parameters that allow you to switch. But too much information sometimes is too much information. Remember, the page is supposed to answer one primary question. Everything else is just allowing you to describe how you, for example, got to the result, but there's typically one primary question and maybe one or two secondary questions that you're trying to answer with that page. You don't have to answer 20 questions.
Correct. And I think, guys, that is the challenge. The challenge is where I put my focus on and what I want to answer. You got these three things: focus and what I want to answer, two things. Okay, write it down in a piece of paper, and that is your challenge.
Yeah.
So anything that is not needed, you just get rid of. And when I mean get rid of, it's I'm telling you, delete the table. You don't need it. Don't
Yeah.
keep it there just in case. Okay, just delete them. Okay, and the same in the table. You see all the columns. Do I need all the columns? No, get them off and
Yeah.
only keep what is important for you. Okay,
Absolutely.
so because you try to tackle this data set, for example, as a whole, you are gonna be in a little nightmare, as I did this morning, trying to check everything out.
There's a reason why me and Federico have no hair left, right?
Yeah,
We've been dealing with this for quite a while, and it takes a toll
yeah,
on you.
indeed. Okay, you
But
want
yeah,
me to go ahead, or do you want to?
no, go ahead. Yeah, talk about the data set first, then I'm gonna talk about a few things that I wanted to cover about the data set as well, if you don't cover
Yes, I'm
them,
gonna
and
go
then about
quickly,
the
but I'm
visuals.
gonna show something else that is quite. I hate it. What I had to do? Microsoft? No, Windows entire screen. That is the one I want to. There you go, guys. That is the best modeling I could do with the entire data set. Okay. Before that, as I normally do, I create my folder path and file path. So if I move something, it doesn't get lost. It is there because I know where he had to look. And then I brought all the information, separated fact table, a dimension table, and put them nicely in two groups. Okay? I haven't had the time to decide what I would do. That is me experimenting with the whole data set. Okay? And that way it is the best I could model. Okay, this data set. Now I got 10 tables, 5 are fact tables, 5 are dimension tables. So how do I organize my cell ID? I don't know, you can see every fact table have a little. Okay, model. So it's easier for me to work. I say, okay, inventory, how, what I can connect to. The same for fulfillment and return. Because they are two fact table, I go both ways and I see what happens. Will this create any problem later on when I prepare a measure? Will be okay in my verification part, and then we have return. So remember, all this that is not properly organized, before was a mess. Go one by one: order line, order, inventory, fulfillment, and return. Every single relationship you do in these sub pages, they will show here. Okay, so remember, if you have too many pages or too many tables, okay, the first thing is to find your focus. What is this challenge about it? Or what is my analysis about it? When that is clear for you, what tables do I need? When you have that table, you get rid of the others. And now, of these tables, what columns am I going to use? Everything that you go to calendar and you say in calendar, do I need the fourth? It's only four in here, but if I don't need holiday flag or event name, I delete it. Okay? And the same for any one of these columns. And more precisely in the in the fact table. The information you do not need, you get rid of it. Okay? So now, okay, when you go to your workstation, your desktop, you can start doing some checkings Okay, and you can, let's say, okay, let me do something so you understand. I don't want fulfillment. I don't want inventory. I don't want that. I'm not gonna do channels, and I'm not gonna do customers. So now when I go here, okay, my desktop, my data set is better. I can see with more, okay, room, and I can check everything better. Okay. Another thing that I did was to throw the Excel file to ChatGPT, and I asking, okay, can you check it out? Can you tell me discrepancies, any problem, blah, 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 blah. And I receive the information. Okay, and then guys, I don't know if you know, by the latest Microsoft upgrade, we have now an update called NCP. It's Model Control Protocol or something like that. I think so. Basically, Visual Studio connect to your file, okay, and now it's just you talking to, okay, the Visual Studio and your data set, okay. So I asked, can you prepare this measure for me? Can you prepare table descriptions? Can you make sure all the format string are applied properly, blah, blah, and that then is automatically done, okay, by the NCP, by Visual Studio. I want to bring that to your attention because, guys, if you have serious problem, you can actually document, add measures and a lot of stuff, okay, just by connecting Visual Studio to your Power BI, okay. You need to install it. So you have Copilot Shop and Power BI Modeling NCP and GitHub Copilot. There are a couple of videos, guys, in YouTube, really good for that. But I believe that the better it gets, the better it will be for us to actually have better control with our models, and at the same time, it applies the changes directly to your Power BI file. I think it is coming that it will also be able to connect to Power BI service. So if you have a workspace where you have 3 or 4 files and they have something in common, you can tell from here, from Visual Studio, can you change this measure in this file because there is a problem with them? And automatically we're doing the 4 files without needing you to open the file individually and change the measures too. There is a lot of work we can already do here. Okay, so you go all the measure. There is some changes that you can do here already. Okay, but I think Visual Studio with the connection to GitHub and the NCP give us better control, okay, and better way of doing things. So remember that for you to kind of play a little bit about it. And experiment to learn a little bit about it. The tabular model definition language is that Tyndall, okay, also is quite good. You can change one thing, just little thing that actually like the import, you can change it to direct query. And if apply now, and I go to my model, you will see that this is now in direct query. So I just change automatically, okay, the type of connection by working in Tyndall. I can go here again and apply it. and now it's again indirect import. And the same with the measures. Think about it's not count row. You can select that and you say find count row and replace with whatever you want to. Yes, replace with distinct count whatever you want to, and it will automatically change it for you. So remember, we are now in a different time of, or in a different era. We need to understand how to work with our visualization, but there are also new tools within Power BI Desktop that is going to help us to do our work better and quicker. So guys, don't stay behind. Go and check what you can do with the Tyndall or tabular model definition language, and what you can do with the modeling control protocol or something like that. Okay, with Visual Studio. Maybe that is me, but remember, all that has been created by the Visual Studio. I haven't done anything. He went on the table, checked, give me some suggestions, okay, and told me, yeah, I'm gonna do all that for you. I
Okay.
also told, yeah, I
No,
also
no.
told, give me a second, yeah, sí, voy aquí, to fill the pain. So all that has been entered. Even the description has been entered by the NCP. Okay, so you have a ready model and well-defined file. And that's it. No more for me. Let me, how do I start sharing this? I forgot. There you go.
There we go. um, yeah. From my side, what Federico mentioned is it is very important, right? Because the one thing you have to understand is you don't necessarily, as soon as it comes out, you need to understand everything straight away, fully understand how it builds and everything. No, the main thing you need to do is at least play around with it, just take a look at it, try to understand what it's doing. If not, maybe watch one or two videos. You don't necessarily, like I said, have to understand to the full extent what's capable of it, but you need to understand the core concept of what's new coming into Power BI. The reason why this is so important is because the more you understand those bits and pieces, the better you can start to put together the whole picture of what is necessary for this project. Sure, you might not be the best one to do the TMDL transformations or anything. Maybe somebody else can do it for you. Maybe ChatGPT can help you with. There are different ways on how you can solve this. But the more you understand about the building blocks, the easier it is going to be to build a very good report when it comes to the actual customers. Because for challenge environments, it's different, right? We give you the data and it's going to be fine. In the real world, well, you kind of have to figure it out what to do and how to do it. So the more you learn, the easier it's going to be. Just same goes for different visuals and so forth. The more ideas you get about certain executions, certain styling options, and so forth, you don't always have to use all of them, right? But certain cases call for certain solutions. It's the same as, for example, in the top five announcement. Federico also mentioned this, right? For example, SVGs, right? They're still a good tool for certain scenarios. You don't need to use them everywhere just because you know how to. But in certain cases, that is the best solution for the showcasing of the actual data. So, learning different methods is always going to be beneficial. Uh, yeah, what I did is, of course, I did the same thing as I always do. I just went through the tables, do some quick analysis, or just basically trying to understand what's within every single one of them, and trying to understand what is it something that I'm going to be utilizing for analysis. Like, for example, if I went to the fulfillment, the one thing that caught my eye was the fact that we have three different dates, which usually triggers a bit of fear in newer users because you're used to having a single connection to the calendar table. Now suddenly there's three of them. Which one do I connect? What do I do with the rest of them? How do I calculate this and so forth? So there's different things you can do with this one as well. But the thing that I was starting to think about is if you look at the three dates that they provide us with, right? They have a promise date, shipping date, and delivery date. So the first thing that I would want to look into is most likely these dates are important, right? That's for the analysis. So what I did is this is done with just a subtraction, but I also did it with DAX. This is essentially just a calculation to understand how much days in between are there from the actual delivery date from the promise date that they told us. So that allows me to understand, for example, okay, if I start to filter out based on a carrier, how big is their delay typically, right? Is it maybe to a specific warehouse, to a specific region, or whatever it could be? So that's part of the analysis. And the same goes, SVD is shipment to delivery. So how much time does it actually take me to deliver the product? Then you have the shipping costs and everything. And what other thing that you can always do is, for example, you have delivery status, right? So sure, it says late, but how much is late?
How much late?
Yeah. So based on this, you can be like, okay, if I select late, how many different options we have here? Okay, so we have everything starting from 1 day to a week. What you might do here is be like, you know what, that seems a bit too broad. So
Too
what I
much.
could do
Yeah.
is exactly. So you just make either a different group where you just move these dates a little bit, create a new separation in the grouping, right? Say that okay, 1 or 2 days, it's late, it's understandable, things happen, you can get delayed, right? Anything above 2 days up until 5 days is already in sort of like compensation type of thing. Everything above 7 or 5 days, it's unacceptable, it's a high risk delivery or whatever it is. Those are the deliveries that we need to investigate closer, right? And then you start to look into, okay, who was doing the deliveries, okay, what products were we shipping, was it part of a sale maybe? And that's how all those things come together, and this is just from the fulfillment stage. And the reason why Federico constantly mentioned to focus on specifics is all I just said is just from this table. There's 5 or 6 more tables, right? So every single one of them can be also investigated in the same manner. You just start to dig deeper and deeper. Okay, what else can I do here? I could do this, I could do this, I could take a look at this part, right? So focus on something specific that you seem interested in. Like, for example, I don't know why, but maybe it's because it was just the first one and it was an interesting case. I would probably do a report on shipments and returns.
Yeah, but it's an excellent Avis, an excellent example. Your client not going to be happy. You tell them the product coming tomorrow, and no, it's coming in a week time.
Yeah,
So it's important for any company to actually check this information. Not only that, normally company have, as you said, 2 days, okay, yeah, labor is okay, okay. 3 days we start to worry about it, and more than 3 days we need to investigate what happened.
yeah,
Okay, so I think it's an excellent analysis only just from that page.
yeah. Because at the end of the day, you can see also the order ID, right? If we connect this to the order line table, we can also understand how big of a shipment is being transferred. So what's the value, how many items are there, and so forth. So maybe if a delivery is more than 3 days late, for example, right, we start to issue a compensation. The compensation might be like 20% of the whole bucket that is being delivered, basically. And that gives you a new number, which is the compensation number. So how much are you actually paying on top of this, even though they just bought it from you, right? So you can play around with these ideas and you can create very interesting stories. The main idea is don't try to connect everything. From my experience and what I understood from Federico as well from today, it's a nightmare. You can do it, but it's a nightmare. So focus on
Yeah,
something a little bit more manageable.
yeah. Guys, just focus on something, get rid of the thing you don't want to analyze. It will give you a clearer picture of what you want to do. Not all the table connect together.
No. Yeah.
So you say, okay, that dimension cannot connect it to this one. I can also see what you have. Um, Prepare your plan. That is my question. That's what I want to analyze. Get rid of the rubbish.
Yeah. Because, for example, what good example of what couldn't be connected? I did specifically one
Promotion, yeah.
chart for this, right? There's promotions. Promotions have a start and end date. You could try to kind of use them to connect based on it, maybe campaign
Yeah.
name or promotion campaigns. But if I start to create, for example, something like a sales analysis, right? So what I've did here on the timeline, there's the full timeline of the sales, but I can't really use the date per se, neither the start date or the end date of a campaign, right? It should be some sort of a date in between. So what's going to happen is if I start to cross filter this information, I'm essentially kind of putting down the numbers. Some of them are, if you're using the same table, you can cross filter it. But if I would allow the timeline to issue a filter, I could also achieve this, right? Let's say if I select just 2 weeks or something like that, suddenly everything seems that nothing met the targets. But that's because the total reference number is exactly the same, right? The campaign target never changed because, well, it's an overall target we have for the campaign. So don't try to put everything together. Be very cautious about how you try to construct things. If you try to do it, make sure that everything makes sense. Otherwise, it's very difficult to do a good analysis or a good storytelling from that. So that's one part. For other tables, yeah, I would say if you're using fulfillment, like I said, one of them could be order lines, just so you can understand what products are being issued, how much it costs, what discounts are being applied, and so forth. Because maybe you realize that, hey, it turns out that most of the items that are being delivered late are part of some sort of a discount, right? If it is, we have to understand maybe it's because of the discount we're really getting so much surplus or so many high demand deliveries that we need to just think about the delivery process, or we just need to make a higher stock, the inventory management. So there's different paths to how to investigate this. The other thing that I thought was interesting was, for example, a return. And for this one as well, there are different reasoning, different conditions, refund amounts. And the one thing that I thought was interesting as well in this data set is that it doesn't just say, I just refunded the amount and that's it, but it also kind of takes into account the restocking fee and the return shipment costs. So if we do, for example, some sort of analysis, like I did a very quick one here, of how is my number going down to what I'm actually getting out of this is what I started with. That's how I made in total in sales. This is how much I paid for the shipment initially. This is how much I had to return because of different reasonings. This is how much it cost me to do all the marketing, employee management and everything. This is how much I'm getting currently at the end. By decreasing any of these numbers, this number goes up. So if we're saying that refunds is 5 million, maybe I could do something about that.
Yeah, that's too much more in refunds.
Yeah, right. You want to have some, which is fine, but 5 mil, especially if you think
Yeah,
about the timeline, which is basically 2 months, ah, probably can do a little bit better.
yeah.
Because if you also look at the percentages, it's like almost like 8% of the total sales is on the refunds, just like that. But yeah,
And from 55 million sales to only a revenue of 15 million, there is another massive chunk of money that goes on the processes.
yep,
And the
absolutely.
idea is, how do I reduce these costs, these processes, so my revenue goes up, my net revenue goes up.
And this is one of the things that you're gonna see in real life as well. Like for example, companies are gonna give you the data. They have their idea of what they want to investigate. But for example, if you would even just put these numbers in front of them, I think pretty soon they would say, okay, we need to understand what is it costing us so much. Maybe
Yeah,
it's the delivery process itself. Not only 500,000 based on 555 million, that seems fine.
yeah.
But something else is just eating my money.
Cost and refund will be actually just popping up there like a screaming, hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, yeah. Imagine if you could do a conditional formatting based on animation, just
And, pa, pa, pa.
just blaring sirens on the sides of this.
Yeah, yeah, indeed.
But yeah, few things that I wanted to visually showcase that we've been working on as well. Uh, on this chart, there's something that's coming with the new release to the combo bar, and also the timeline series, and it's going to be a new chart type. So previously, what I'm essentially doing here is the following. I have three different series, three different values. I have the total sales, which is the background column right here. Then I have the returns, so I can understand, for example, which campaign generates the highest amount of returns. And then I have this orange line, which is a reference to the campaign. if you remember in the promotions table, we have this total budget, so planned budget. So I'm using that as basically a reference of how much I expected to get from this and how much I'm getting from
How
this.
much I'm getting.
And the same goes for everything that's below it, right? So I can go from a campaign into specific promotions, and I can see, for example, okay, this one hasn't met the targets. Yeah, but it's still close, so it's acceptable. And this is where you can start to play around with the conditional formatting as well. So the way I've constructed this is series one, which is the total sales. I have enabled conditional formatting. And conditional formatting, the one thing you have to remember is the following. I'm going to do it on purpose. I'm going to reset it. If I enable conditional formatting, I'm going to say that it's not based on average. It's actually based on another series. And in this case, it's series 3. Series 3 is my reference value. So it looks like this, right? And the main thing you always have to understand is whether these colors initially are doing the right messaging. Because the main idea why you want to get sort of make sure that it's available. Give me a second. There we go. So the main thing that you wanted to achieve here is essentially understand whether or not I have met the target. But remember, if this would be, for example, some sort of cost analysis, going over the budget is not a great thing, right? So that would be red instead of green. So play around with these to make sure that it always just makes sense. But the new chart type that we introduced is this one. So series 3, previously I would have done this like this. I would have made it a line, I would have made it as a step line. For example, I'm going to make it a different color so it's just easier to see. So maybe this would be something that I would use for it, right? But the tricky part about this one is that you have these connecting lines all over the place. Well, that's because it's basically outlining the column. So the new chart type that we're creating, well, we have already done it. It's just still going through the, let's call it the bureaucracy papers of publishing a visual. It's coming, but it's stuck. So the new chart type is going to be a reference line. It's a very simple concept. You're essentially taking stepped outline, but you're removing the connecting lines and you're just making a reference line. And for this one as well, you can also, if it's not necessary, let's say if the columns are bigger like this, right, you don't necessarily need it that big. So you can just say that maybe it's only like 50% of the width or something like that. Just make it a small reference to understand which point it indicates.
Can
So
you add a label to that?
yeah, of course. Since it's a series, you can add a label to it. You can position it where you
So,
want to.
correct. So you know the target or whatever it is. Excellent.
Absolutely. Because you can also do this, for example, right? Uh, Not necessarily in this case, it would be understandable, but the idea is still the same. Since it's a series, I can also specifically conditionally format that line, just not the whole column, for example, but only the marker or the value label of the marker. So every single part of it is also still can be conditionally formatted. But yeah, so that's one of the new things that we're implementing that you're going to be able to play around are these reference lines. So that's something interesting coming as well. And I think in this case, like if you're looking at promotion level or if you have set some targets, that's also something you can utilize. Similar to refunds, right? We were talking about refunds and returns. We don't have any set targets or metrics as to how many were we expecting. If you guys want to enhance again that story with additional data, go ahead and do it, right? Just add some additional information in a separate dimension table that says, hey, for these products, we were expecting this amount of returns. This is what we were kind of okay with. Getting this much, it's a bit absurd, right? And vice versa. So that part of it. The other thing is, I think I very briefly mentioned it last time as well, but for the donut chart, of course, you have your KPI cards for those of you who haven't played around with them. But the new thing is going to be the detail label customization. And this is already live on AppSource, so I can't show you how it was before. But now, detail labels essentially are controlled through separate tabs of each individual property. So previously, you were always controlling them all together. Now you're going to be able to specifically say that, for example, okay, I want a category label, I want a percentage value, and that's it. For the rest of them, you start to customize it. So, for example, let's say if I just reset everything, right? This is, for example, what I'm going to be starting with without the change and without this. So this is most likely what you're going to have, right? The category plus the percentage. So if this is fine, you can keep it like this. If you want to make it a little bit more visually appealing, you can also go ahead and say, hey, I just want to customize a little bit of background for it. Let's say you don't like the background, maybe it's too intrusive, doesn't really fit into the whole sort of feeling of the report. You don't have to customize the background. You can also customize the font itself. So the font by default is going to be fixed color, which is black, but you can go ahead and switch to dynamic, and what it does is it inherits the color from the slice. So it's again a little bit easier to connect the dots, which value is representing which part. So that's another thing. What else you can do here is if you have multiple items, let's say if I have all three of them, you can see for some of them, it kind of puts everything into a single row. This one that just doesn't have a category. This has two rows and so forth. But if you want to split them to be on separate lines, there's a specific property for it that allows you to make sure that there's a name, value, percentage value. You want to switch around the order of them. Right here is the order. You can say, hey, and actually the value label is the primary thing, or it's the least important thing. So you can just place it on third and the percentage place it on second. So you can move them around, make sure that it looks and feels very good and understandable to you. The other thing that we did here is reference value. And the reference value, I think it's kind of a nice touch, especially if you're looking at changes or some sort of target property. What I'm going to be using is the same target that I had for the promotion. So if I go to promotions, planned budget, I'm going to use it as a reference, and that's going to give me this property right here, which is called change. These little triangles going up or down, or just a little rhombus if there's no change. What you see here, these are not icons, these are UTF characters, which means that you can just Google UTF arrows, for example, just to give you an example, UTF arrows, open it up, and for example, looking at this, be like, I don't really like them, I wanted something else. That's fine. Go through the library and be like, maybe this arrow, maybe this one. And you can just literally copy, for example. Or actually, let's go upwards because I have the upwards trend here. Just place it in
Yeah,
and it replaces it.
great, you can replace it there. That's
Yeah.
brilliant. That's brilliant.
Or just, be simple.
Hmm.
So it's completely up to you on how you modify. These are free text fields and you can do whatever you want. But I think the biggest benefit here is because having these triangles, for example, or arrows going up or down, you would still require a lot of times, for example, to quickly read the information, right? So what we did is we also allow you to enable conditional formatting. So what you want to do is apply settings to, change labels, and right here you can see customize fonts, and by default you're also able to do it conditionally. The main idea here is just make sure the colors, for example, aren't too bright. We can see this one is sort of a little bit on the brighter side, so I want to make it a little bit darker, the red one as well, so they're kind of closer to each other. But now, if I start to cross-filter the information, you can see this allows me to very quickly understand which ones have met their targets or below a certain target or comparison to last year, whatever the reference value is. So that's one of the benefits of using this because it allows you to very quickly kind of identify certain properties. And of course, if you don't want it to be the last one, remember, these are separate properties. So if we go into the order again, say the change is going to be on the same line as the name, for example. It just depends on how much space you have for them, of course. But yeah, you can play around with these things, make sure it's a little bit easier for you to understand, read, and so forth. There's a bunch of different other settings, and well, looking forward to your feedback. Because at the end of the day, one of the main drivers for some of the features that we're developing isn't just because, oh, what could be cool? We could do this or that. Sure, Federico.
Should not the 252 million cells in the middle, if you make bigger, the chart automatically grow with it?
So in this case, the size itself is fixed. This is something
Yeah.
that we already had as a feedback. Yeah, this is something that we're going to
Okay.
be
Okay.
implementing as well.
Okay.
And that's the reason why we want the feedback, because we did think about a lot of things, but we kind of missed that part. But the good thing, at least, is that you can still make it, manually
Yeah,
adjustable.
manually you can.
But of course,
Nah,
scaling
not better.
is a lot better.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know what you think about it. If you have any feedback, any more ideas, anything, just let us know, because it helps us to make sure that all these features and everything is working as expected or even better. That's the main thing.
So basically, Avis,
Yeah.
you can on your bottom left and that one.
Hmm.
You just I'm looking for the name of this visual. That is a bar, previous year, and your target. As a
Bullet
KPI,
chart.
you can basically you can create one bullet chart with that.
Yeah, of
Actually,
course.
yeah,
Very
no?
simply. So if I disable this, I take series 1, I say that it's maybe 10% width. I don't need this. I need the reference line. The reference line is right there. The label, maybe not so much. Something like this.
Yeah, exactly.
Or, of
Excellent.
course, if you want to play around with the value labels, you just start to try to position it where
To
you
put
want it
it
to
wherever
be.
you want to. Yeah, excellent.
So, playing around with this is what we're trying to do, is kind of give you that flexibility. But yeah, and it's one of the things that I don't think people fully realize, right? That the reason why this is called a combo chart is because it's literally able to create hundreds of variations.
Variation, yeah, indeed,
Because you have columns, lines, areas, any combination between them, box and whiskers, candlesticks, bullet charts, dumbbell charts. It just requires a little bit of creative thinking on how to apply these properties, for example.
indeed.
So it's fun, and it's more powerful the more you start to play around with it.
Avis, where people can give their feedback? Where do they go to and tell
So for
you?
the feedback, I'd say the best channel would be the support team. So support at zoomcharts.com, because support team is going to be primarily working with the product team most closest. But
Okay.
of course, if you're going to use webinars at zoomcharts.com as well, it's not going to be like, no, it's sent on the wrong channel, we're not going to read it, right? As long as
Okay.
we somehow get the message, that's fine. Because it helps us to make sure that we're taking into account all the small details and everything. Because as much as I would love to say that it's possible to cover everything, trust me, guys, it's pretty much impossible. There's too many use cases, too many nuances, edge cases, and everything that we need to take into account. So that's why feedback just allows us to make sure that, okay, yeah, we missed that one, our fault, we're gonna fix that.
Yes. Another thing that when I ask him for feedback, we need to keep our mind for the whole community. You cannot think, well, I personally would like to do that because if everybody give a different feedback to the sunshine, you're going to have a visual with so many different variations that it's going to be unnecessary. Okay, so it had to be okay. I think that for the community in general, it will be something that will benefit
Yeah,
them instead of just me. Okay,
of course.
because my boss like it this way. Okay, so when we focus on giving feedback, we need to make sure that that is something that will the community of the data analysts in general welcome this, or it will be another variation, a necessary variation of a chart.
No, absolutely. And trust me, we've had some requests where we go through them, we try to understand why the user wants it, but you just go through and be like, yeah, no.
Okay. I laughing because I know when I was in the Power BI court in the visual, they were creating the visual, blah blah blah, with Miguel
Yeah.
Mayas. We sometimes encounter this kind of feedback, and we were looking at each other like, "Are you sure this guy is normal?"
Yeah,
Okay, so in the most, why do you want that? Okay, so but hey, it is what it is.
absolutely. No. There's a lot of different things that we're doing behind the scenes that nobody sees for a while until we kind of figure out, okay, what's the best possible sort of outcome for this, or how do we want to position this to make sure that it just is understandable and it's something useful. So
And okay,
this is
one
something that
more
we're
little
also
thing.
working on the back end.
Are
It's more of
you
a yeah, it's more of a spectrogram
with
chart.
the Medusa?
Currently it's completely randomized, but essentially it's a chart that allows you to plot three different axes. So there's a y, x, and z axis.
I think it was this fish in the water that's kind of a Medusa.
Yeah.
Don't do that. I will not be your friend. Yeah, you do what you have to do. Guys, I think Alexandra put a form there to be filled up.
Yep.
Please fill it. Give us feedback to us, and you might be lucky and win a packet book. I have 10 titles. Okay, so remember, just by filling out the form, I think there are 4 or 5 questions, no more. Okay, we know what to do in the next webinars, and you can win a book. And when I'm talking you a book, I'm talking you a 30, 40, $50 book. So hey, say yes to the freebies.
Absolutely. And also there's the unwritten rule that there's a modifier for the chance
Yeah.
of winning. So
Yeah, no. It is. It's not hidden anymore. If you fill out the form, you have a 10% more chances
yeah.
to win the challenge.
But yeah, if you guys have
And
any other questions, more than
okay,
happy to
why do
answer.
you limit 3 pages? Why do we limit?
Oh, I can explain that easily. Uh,
Go ahead.
One of the things we do is we go through every single one of the submissions and we send in the feedback as to what are the certain things we would recommend you to improve, to look into, or to just take into considerations. Now, imagine you have, like, let's say, even 50 reports. Instead of 3 pages, every single report would be 10 pages. So now, instead of maybe 10, 15, half an hour going through the reports, commenting on DAX and so forth, we now have to spend an hour going through a single report.
Yeah.
We also have our limited resources.
At the same time, when I put the congratulations, 75 entries,
Yeah.
okay? 75 entry for 3 pages, 200 plus pages. Okay, somebody guys need to put that in Canva one by one, yes? Tightly organized. That take, I'm telling you, 3 to 4 hours just to present to you later on the entries. Okay, and we love, we care, but we also need to think about the capabilities we have. I am an employee. Okay, remember I work from 9 to 6 every day, and everything we do in ZoomCharts and we do in the group, the Challenges group is a community group. We do for free and we love. So we sometimes need to actually stop or telling you only 3 pages will be enough. Okay, and that what it is, a limitation of what we can do and what we can achieve. Okay, in the right time.
Yeah. Because we're still allowing you to create, for example, we don't count things like report page tooltips and so forth. Like, you have some flexibility there. But it wouldn't be also fair to, for example, if a user is starting out fresh, to just have, I don't know, let's say 5, 6 pages with different measures, different views and everything, against somebody who is just starting off and trying to create something simple and just, beautiful, for example.
Exactly, and I think 3 pages
It's
of
more than
analysis.
enough.
Guys, if you lose a page doing the night intro that you click a button take you to the
Yeah.
page, you are losing a page unnecessarily. Okay, use the 3 pages for analysis. And remember, the size of the page. I normally use 180 for 1920. Yeah, you can go. I use that one. That make it a lot bigger. Look, now you have 1920. Now you have a lot more space.
See,
Okay.
suddenly.
Okay. I've never used the 16:9. So if you make a combination of this stuff and start wasting your time in these beautiful entry pages that for 3 pages not necessary, okay, and you stay there in that page 2 seconds just to click to go to the other page, okay, you are missing a page. So 3 pages, I think, is good enough for actually
It's a
to
good
present.
number.
Yeah.
Because remember, guys, you don't also. It's one of the practices that everybody is trying to do, but unfortunately, it's hard to do because we still have these reports which have like 20 pages and so forth. But a good report is like 2-3 pages, and then we have a different report for different things. You don't want to
Definitely
cover
correct.
everything within a single. That's why in Power BI services you have apps, right? You combine multiple reports into an app that covers different things, but a single report, you don't need to make it heavy just because you're covering multiple things. Focus on one.
Actually, it's gonna be one of your fights in real world with your client, telling you why do you want everything in one report.
Yeah.
Okay, 20 pages report, it will slow down the performance, it will be too complex. Some people might doesn't need to watch the 20 pages, it's only two. Why are you giving these people 20 pages? Okay, so 3-4 pages, I think is more than enough for a report based on one finance or accounts or products. Or then if you want to have human resources also into the equation, make a different report.
Yeah.
Okay, so remember that.
Absolutely. But yeah, other than that, thank you for
Any more
joining.
questions? No?
I don't think we have any. Yeah.
That's good. Well, every fantastic presentation. I really like the improvement you are making.
That's good.
So, guys, Christmas time. Happy Christmas to those that celebrate it. And if you don't celebrate it, happy times. Okay?
Absolutely.
All the time. And I hope to see your entry in this challenge. And I see you after New Year's.
Yeah. All right. Have a great
Okay,
rest
let's
of
go,
the
Aivis.
year, everybody. See you next year.
Yeah, thank you, Aivis. Bye bye.
Bye.